The hosts feel it would be a little unkind to present this podcast without just a word of friendly warning. We are about to unfold the story of Frankenstein, a man of science who sought to create a man after his own image without reckoning upon God. It is one of the strangest tales ever told. It deals with the two great mysteries of creation, life and death. I think it will thrill you. It may shock you. It might even horrify you. So if any of you feel that you do not care to subject your nerves to such a strain, now's your chance to. Well, we've warned you.
Hello, and welcome once again to the Frankencast. I'm the mad scientist, Anthony Bowman. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm joined as always by...
the comedic relief German officer that is Hayden Orr. My pronouns are also he, him.
Yeah, so we're back with Billy Frankenstein, a movie that I had never seen, but apparently you said you saw this when you were a kid?
Yeah, I, halfway through this movie, I was like, oh yeah, I've seen this. This is like, it unlocked some ancient memories in my subconscious. In my small town, we used to have a movie rental place. We didn't have a Blockbuster. We had a place called Movie Gallery, and it was basically the only place for like forever. But at a certain point, another movie rental place moved in like down the street, and it changed hands a few times, so it never had like a permanent name. But they had like a bunch of weird movies. Like, they had movies that I've never heard of before and stuff that like you would never see at Movie Gallery, because Movie Gallery was much more like a mainstream kind of place. And I remember distinctly renting this movie once. And also there was another Frankenstein. I wouldn't even call it a movie. It was more like an animated short about like Dr. Frankenstein creating a pet snake, which was also, I've never been able to find anything about that on the internet either. But for the life of me, when I got older, I could not remember what the name of this movie was, when exactly I had seen it. I just remembered certain parts of it. And yeah, in the middle of watching this, I was like, oh, this is that movie.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad it worked out that we were able to reintroduce you to it then. That's really funny.
Yeah. Also, another funny or interesting coincidence is, when we watched what was the one with the 80s comedy with the hospital?
Frankenstein General Hospital?
Yes, Frankenstein General Hospital. I was telling you that actor that was playing the sort of antagonistic doctor, he was a side character in the Nickelodeon series Ned's Declassified School Survival Guide. Mm-hmm. Well, in Billy Frankenstein, the actor that plays Billy's dad, Darren Norris, he also was in Ned's Declassified School Survival Guide as the janitor that everybody, like all the kids were friends with, the adult janitor that everyone was friends with. But also, he's much more well-known as being the voice of Timmy Turner's dad and Cosmo in The Fairly Odd Parents.
Okay. See, I knew him from Veronica Mars, where he plays like a sleazy lawyer named Cliff. And
see, I've never watched Veronica Mars, so that's one of those things where I'm like vaguely aware of it as a series, but I've never actually seen any of it.
Yeah, that's one that like Kendall, my ex, was like a huge fan of. So I enjoyed it quite a bit, but she was like obsessed. So I've seen that series probably 5 or 6 times all the way through, and it's great. It's definitely really good, and he's not a big character in it, but he is very funny in it.
Oh yeah. This is just very funny to me that there's, 2 of these actors from a Nickelodeon series were just happened to be in very low budget, obscure Frankenstein comedy movies.
Yeah, that is a funny coincidence. The funnier thing, or like, so also, you know, this movie's directed by Fred Olen Ray, which I think this was kind of a thing in like the mid to late 90s. A lot of the guys who started out doing like trashy exploitation and sexploitation movies, a lot of these guys had this brief window where they like tried to make family friendly movies. And they're all extremely weird and like didn't pick up, you know, they didn't like get them to jump over. They all ended up going back into like, you know, sexploitation stuff, I think, for the most part. But it's so Fred Olen Ray, like, you know, if you're a horror fan like us, you're most likely going to know him from like Hollywood Chainsaw Hookers and Evil Toons and some of those kind of, you know, very low budget trash. He did the Scream Queen hot tub party and stuff like that. But like around the time that he did this, he had several other attempts. It was like he did like Invisible Mom and The Kid with X-Ray Eyes and all these kind of like, you know, sort of cute teen movies that are still, or not teen, like kid movies, but that still, you know, kind of lean towards like horror and weird stuff. And yeah, definitely aimed at like, you know, the kinds of kids we were, but like, you know, I just, these totally missed me. But yeah, like, I think they were, you know, your experience with them, I think, was the intent. You know, these went straight into video stores and had weird covers, and like, you know, weird monster kids saw them and they're like, hey, this looks cool, and they get mom and dad to take it and everything. And then, yeah, you know, eventually he went back to like even lower budget, like Skinamax kind of stuff, like a lot of them did. But we're really lucky we have this extremely strange but very fun and like very, you know, I loved this movie. Like, I think this is a really, really great, just a great kids movie. Like, we have a kid as sort of the main character and the adults around it. Like, a lot of times when, you know, you have like kids that are these kind of movies, like the adults are either like corrupt or stupid, or, you know, they're usually like the kids have to save the day because the parents or the authority figures around them are just completely inept. And that's not really the case here. Like, Billy kind of, you know, is keeping things from the adults because he's worried that they might not understand. But like at every point when like an adult is given a chance to know what's going on, they believe Billy and they're like on his side and everything. Like, this just felt really good. Like, there's villains and stuff, obviously, but they should be, you know, like there's not like the whole thing where it's just like, well, okay, fine, I guess I got to do this myself because my dad thinks that it's crazy that I saw a monster in my closet. You know, there's none of that. So I enjoyed that for this. Like, I think it makes for a fun movie to be like, your parents will believe you if something weird happens. Like, I think that's a good message for kids to get. Definitely.
I honestly, the only problem I had with this movie was that every single character is afflicted with a very dire and fatal case of talking to themselves. I don't think there's a single character that, like, when they're alone, they just have no dialogue.
Yeah, it does feel like, you know, because it's like, oh, this is for kids. We can just kind of do some like lore dumping this way, exposition. It's easy. Like, we don't have to work too hard to try to show and not tell.
Which isn't even to say that, you know, they were bad performances or anything. Just that, like, literally every, like, doesn't matter what character it is, if they're alone and they don't have somebody to, like, bounce dialogue off of, they're just going to start saying it out, like, into the air. And it's like, okay.
Yeah. All right. Well, you want to go ahead and dig in?
Yeah. Let's get into it.
We start out, we have like a sort of back alley street market kind of thing. And it really sets the tone for like what this movie's going to be like. We have, you know, people, you know, with little booths, like yelling, like, you know, calling for people. If you've ever been to one of these kind of like crowded sort of, you know, street markets, you know the vibe. But here, you know, we've got a guy selling brains, and he's like, oh, they're gently used. You know, they've been used in a couple science experiments, but they're still good. I promise. Come pick up a brain. And then there's another, like a woman who has a little booth, and she's selling monster dolls, and specifically has like a Frankenstein. And she's like trying to sell one to like a little girl. And the girl's like, look, Mom, Grandma was right. And the mom's like, no, there's no such thing as monsters. Next thing you're going to be saying you believe in Santa Claus. So, we're kind of setting up that this is very silly, that there's going to be a lot of like fun monster jokes and gags and everything. And the credits, like it takes us to credits, which are pretty like, I think it's just like text. There's not like a lot going on. I think there's like a heart monitor kind of thing going as like the credit text is going. And then when we come back, we're at a funeral, and we've got like, the classic like bereft woman who like throws herself on the coffin and is screaming and crying and everything. And we have a guy there who I initially thought was like a funeral director. We'll eventually find out that he's not. He was Dr. Frankenstein's assistant. He's, sort of an Igor type, but a very different kind of guy. He's not, a hunchback assistant. He's a very like proper kind of butler-ish guy with a very weird haircut. And his name is Bloodstone.
He there are moments where he kind of gives off like Pretorius vibes in a way. I would say he's much closer to like a Pretorius than an Igor.
Yeah, he definitely has like the slightest hint of like queer coding, like probably even less than Pretorius, which is funny since this came out in the 90s versus like the 30s. But it's a kid's but like he does just have like a slight hint of like he's a little different, there's a couple moments where he kind of like checks his hair. His hair is very specifically styled into a very odd looking do, and there's a couple moments where he kind of is like, you gotta check the hair. So I think that's kind of definitely the vibe they were probably going for. And as he's like trying to or he gets security to drag this woman out, and then a pager goes off, and he looks down at it. He has a pager, but it's not his. And then he opens the coffin and sees one in there, and he's like, "Oh, it was just a reminder to take his heart medication." And then we just have like people in the funeral audience heckling, and they're like,
they're doing bits."
A lot of good it does him now. And like people are, everyone laughs, and Bloodstone kind of like makes a face. And then someone's like, says something about like that it's a funeral for a Frankenstein. Or I think Bloodstone's like, come pipe down, it's a funeral. And I'm like, yeah, but it's a funeral for a Frankenstein. It doesn't count, And they just like, I think start throwing rotten food at him. So just really, an unruly crowd at a funeral, which is, just really, again, sets the tone here. And we,
I think the next funeral I go to, I'm gonna bring some material and start doing bits and just see how it goes.
But then we like go away from this to like a very different. So this, this looked, we had this kind of strange Bloodstone. We're at Frankenstein's funeral, kind of weird people in a castle, and suddenly now we're in like a very normal, not late 90s suburban home. We have a mom talking to her son who's kind of like moping around. His dad has a new job where he's working too late, and he's not. This feels very 90s latchkey kid kind of thing. And the mom's trying to be like, yeah, I know you miss seeing your dad around, but like he's really working hard for the family. He's really trying to like take care of us and get us what we need to get by. And I'm sure eventually, once he settles into the job, it'll calm down a little bit. And we find out that the job is that he's like the caretaker of a hotel, or like the manager sort of. And she's like, don't worry, you've got like your baseball game's coming up or whatever. And Dad will be there for that. I swear. He'll definitely be there for that. And Billy's like, yeah, you said that last time. He's going to get distracted with work. He's not going to show up again. And then the mom gets interrupted from continuing this with a phone call from her sister, Aunt Thelma. And like Billy starts like making weird faces at mom, and she like has to kind of like, stifle a laugh because Aunt Thelma does not like it when people laugh at her. So we definitely don't want her to think she's being laughed at. And we eventually get the mom's name as Sandy. It is a while. Like for the longest time, my notes I just had Mom. We get the dad's name pretty quickly. He's George, but it's a while before someone actually calls her Sandy. Which it kind of makes sense. This movie's from the perspective of Billy, and she's Mom. Because George, the dad's is not around. He's not there to say Sandy. So I don't think it's like a lessening her agency or anything like that. It's just for the context of this, it makes sense.
I could even see it as like a depersonalization of the dad since he's never around. He's much more just like a guy named George than my dad, because he's just never there to spend time with him. So you could even view it like that, like it's just how Billy feels considering the fact that he barely ever sees his father.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. But so we go away from Sandy talking to her sister Thelma back to the castle, where a man with a briefcase arrives, and we'll get this man's name is Sheldon, and he seems like he's like Dr. Frankenstein's lawyer or accountant or some sort of like business guy that like helps Frankenstein with his finances and his just estate and all of that. And but of course Frankenstein has died, so he's coming there to talk to Bloodstone, and he's like, just your day has taken a turn for the worse that I'm here. This is not it's not good, and like starts opening his briefcase. But we go from that to Billy's dad George, working, like looking through the books, like trying to get everything in order at the hotel. It kind of felt like Bloodstone's getting ready to look at his books, and it's not going to be good. Similarly, George is having the same thing. He's stressed, and then he's like, oh no, Billy's baseball game, I've forgotten it again. What do I do? He picks up the phone to call and apologize to Billy, but then realizes I don't even know what to say. So he hangs up the phone, and then he calls one of the hotel employees that is a friend of his, and is like, hey, can you come in here for a second? I need some parenting advice. I need some help being a good dad. But before the friend can come in, the phone rings, and he's like, too late. And so he picks it up, assuming it's Billy, and right away is like, I'm so sorry, Billy. I swear next time I'll get it right. But no, it's not Billy. It's a collect call for George Frankenstein. And George is like, there's no George Frankenstein here. I don't know what you're talking. My name is George Frank. No Frankensteins here. This must be a mistake. And he hangs up really fast. So we've had a lot of people, Frankensteins who go by Frank. This is not new.
But this is also really kind of just the beginning of I guess the Dr. Frankenstein dying is really the beginning of it, but this movie borrows a lot of DNA from Young Frankenstein, as we'll see the further we get into the movie.
Yeah, there's definitely a few direct references to it. It's funny, I think a couple months ago there was an initial announcement, and now we're getting more information about that there is going to be a Young Frankenstein prequel, either film or TV series. I think I've heard both at this point. That's I heard it was going to be like a mini series. But I don't know if that's actually, like you said. I mean, they've been saying all kinds of shit about it, and I don't know if that's the final word on it yet. Yeah. I gotta say, I feel like Young Frankenstein is pretty perfect, and I don't think that it needed an additional thing, but the cast looks interesting. Taika Waititi is doing it, and he generally does good things, so I'm gonna hold out optimism that it will be good, but I'm a little skeptical. But The reason I bring it up is because the prequel series is called Very Young Frankenstein, which absolutely could have just been the title of this film.
Yeah.
But once George hangs up on this call that is obviously for him, his friend and coworker comes in and finds George looking very upset, and he's like, "What's the matter, George? You look like you've seen a ghost." And George gets an incredibly good line. He says, "I have the ghost of Frankenstein." I think it almost feels like there's like lightning or something. Like they really lean into this joke, and then we go straight back to Bloodstone talking to Sheldon.
I gotta point out, I don't know if you noticed it, but I noticed it, and I don't think they ever said anything about it, so I was even more baffled. When his friend walks into his office to talk to him, his fucking armpits are drenched in sweat. Like, he looks like he just ran a fucking marathon before coming into the office, and I thought it was so, like, it was so much. I was like, okay, this is gonna be like the butt of some joke in the very, coming up next kind of scene. But I don't think they ever bring it up like at all. It's just I guess the actor was just very sweaty on set that day, and they didn't feel like doing anything to like mitigate it or like keep the shot from having him be soaked in sweat.
Yeah. That does seem like a weird choice, just like even like continuity wise. Like it'd be like maybe we should get you a fresh shirt or something. But
yeah,
low budget films. Sometimes it's just like we got to roll with it. We got to keep going.
Exactly. Yeah. That's probably it. It caught me off guard. I was like, damn, that's a lot of sweat. I was like, they must be going to be making a joke about it like in the next scene, and then nope, just never bring it up again.
Yeah, that is funny. But yeah, so we go from the hotel back to Castle Frankenstein, where Bloodstone and Sheldon are talking, and they're we find out that Frankenstein's finances have just been a wreck. Like they're basically they didn't pay taxes for several years. They've got all this back taxes to pay on the castle, and if they don't take it, then the house, the whole castle could be repossessed, and that would be terrible because Bloodstone has hopes that he can finish Dr. Frankenstein's last big experiment, because his Bloodstone's goal is to make the Frankenstein name feared and revered once more, and Sheldon is like, I have an idea. I think I know somebody that can help us. Maybe we can fix this. And we jump right from that as if maybe we're possibly referring to this someone back to George, who is now talking to his friend about parenting advice, and the friend gives him really good advice. He's like, man, just like get your priorities in order. Like, I also work here. I also have to earn a living for my family. But I'm doing it for my family, and if I forget about my family, then it's not worth it. So don't forget them. Like, you gotta balance everything. If you don't have your work-life balance in order, then it's all for nothing. And they're interrupted by another phone call. It's the collect call again, and he's like, "Okay, fine, I accept it. I'll take the call." Which I don't like. Collect calls, I guess that's not really a thing at all anymore. I don't even know, like, there are probably people who have no idea what this is even about outside of like a movie or something. But yeah, it used to be that like if it was a call you had to pay for, you could either like if I made a long distance call, I would pay for it. But if I made a long distance call collect, the person who received the call would get like a little recording saying like, someone you're receiving a collect call from Anthony. Would you like to accept the charges? And then you'd say yes, or you'd hang up. And I think a lot of people would get these like from prison. Like you can't pay the charges when you're in prison. You call family or whatever. But So originally George did not accept, but now this time he's accepting the charges. He takes the call, and of course it's Sheldon. So then we like bounce back to Sheldon and get his side of the conversation, and we find out George is like open to the idea of like finding out what's going on at the Frankenstein estate, but he's so busy with work that he's not going to go. He's going to send his son and his wife and his sister-in-law Thelma to deal with the estate. And Sheldon is like, okay, great, looking forward to meeting your family. And at some point in the conversation, George talks about that he's like, managing this hotel chain or whatever. And that Sheldon's very excited about, because he has this idea that like, okay, of course, now George must be very wealthy. He'll be able to pay our back taxes. Everything will be fine. Little does he know that George is barely getting by, and that's why he's working so hard at this job.
Yeah.
And, so of course now we have this information that like George is going to accept that he is a Frankenstein. He's going to tell his family because they're going to have to go deal with this estate. So we cut right to the Frank house where Sandy is processing this information. We just kind of skipped the conversation happening. She's just like, I married a Frankenstein. It sounds like a horror movie title. Oh yeah, I guess it was Bride of Frankenstein, and I'm the bride. And she just kind of laughs like crazily, like she's just on the verge of possibly losing her mind dealing with this information. Billy comes in at that point, and he's again mad. Like, Dad's gonna send us off to do work for him, but he can't be around to show up for my baseball games and all that. So he's, again, still frustrated with his dad. But before they can really get into it, Thelma arrives, and she's kind of the family weirdo, and so she's going to be the butt of the joke as we go through things, which makes sense why she is sort of opposed to people laughing at her, because she's kind of ridiculous and probably gets laughed at a lot. But it's time to go, so they head out, and then we jump away to a scene with our last set of characters that we haven't yet met. We have a German police constable, and there's no way I'm going to get this pronunciation right, because it's sort of the bit of the thing. He pronounces his name Frug, and it's Frogg, and everyone else just calls him Frog, and he gets so mad about it. In fact, we are introduced to him by getting a prank call where someone's like, ribbit, ribbit, frog, and he's like, it's pronounced Frug, and hangs up the phone. And then he goes over to the wall where we have a series of photos of his, great-grandfather and his grandfather and his father, who have all previously captured the Frankenstein monster. It feels very much like the, what is his name? From Son of Frankenstein or Ghost of Frankenstein, the guy who inspired Dr. Strangelove. It feels very much of a piece with that character, that this may be his grandson or whatever.
Yeah, and I mean they did the same kind of bit in Young Frankenstein, obviously. Mm-hmm. Inspector Krogh is yes, so definitely referring to him here with a very similar name. But he is convinced that if he could just catch the Frankenstein monster, then people would have to take him seriously and they'd stop making fun of his name. And so he starts laughing kind of crazily as well, but he's interrupted by Otto von Sloan. Obviously another little nod to, Edward von Sloan, our Professor Waldman from the James Whale Frankenstein. And he will frequently be referred to in this movie as the richest man in town and the meanest. And he is married he's with this a woman who, another character that we don't get her name for a long time. People mostly just call her Fraulein. We'll eventually get that her name is Fraulein Blutger, which seems like a Young Frankenstein reference as well. Oh, really? I don't know. I didn't think that one was. I think that was just a little bit of parallel thinking on that one.
And she's, I mean, her name sounds like, Frau Blucher, but she is definitely more of like an Inga type character. She's like a dingy blonde, in like a sort of like sexy version of the traditional German, like, beer maiden kind of outfit. And they have like a plan here. So we find out that von Sloan wants to buy Castle Frankenstein. And he thinks the way to do it, the town, it's a small town, word gets around. They know that the last Frankenstein heir is supposed to be coming to look at the estate and everything. And maybe if we can scare them off, they'll sell it for cheap. So this is von Sloan's plan, because he wants to make a shopping mall. So
another very, very 90s and like early 2000s kind of villain plot for a kids movie. I feel like that's literally like the specific plot of at least, you could probably pick 10 random kids movies from this era, and at least 6 of them would have a plot where the villain is planning to bulldoze some kind of beloved building or buy out some kind of beloved local business or something because they want to put a mall there or something.
Yeah, it's definitely a trope of like these sort of like villainous capitalists, which is great, and we need more of this now. I feel like there's so many movies with this plot that like I can't even think of any specific off the top of my head. There's like, I know there's like a teen one, like the beach is being taken over by a rich guy who wants to develop it into an attraction that's really good, but I do not remember.
I feel like there's one where it's like a ski resort too.
Yeah, I think the ski resort one's so common. I think that like there's like a South Park episode that's a parody of it. Like I feel like
I know for a fact there's an Always Sunny episode that is like literally parodying the like the 80s 90s ski resort in trouble like movie.
Yeah, it's a fun trope. So yeah, it makes sense that they would be using it here. But yeah, so we find out that von Sloan's plan to do this is, he doesn't believe the Frankenstein monster is real, but he knows the stories are around, so let's use them. Let's have a fake hoax Frankenstein monster that can scare everyone away. We can use the rumors to our advantage, and then have somebody jump out in scary makeup, and then we've got it under control. We can take over. So we go from them sort of scheming this idea back to Billy and his mom and aunt arriving at Castle Frankenstein. And like Billy's into this. He's like, oh, this castle's so cool. Maybe there's like monsters that live here. Maybe like zombies, like killer zombies that might try to kill you, Aunt Thelma. And she does not like that. And, of course, as soon as they all like get inside, Billy immediately just takes off. He's just like, hell yeah, I'm exploring this weird ass castle. Like, again, this movie's for kids. If I had watched this when I was a kid, that's exactly how I would have felt. Like, yeah, let's see some cool shit, Billy. Let's do it.
Oh yeah, it's got a similar kind of like child wish fulfillment vibe that I got from Frankenstein and Me, or whatever that movie is with Burt Reynolds.
Yes, yeah, very much.
Because I also rented that movie from the local like movie place as a kid. It's just like any kind of movie where there was like a kid interacting with monsters, and like the kid wasn't scared because he was like a horror kid and he got to experience all this cool monstery shit. That was like my golden ideal for like a movie or a TV show or something when I was younger.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, there's nothing better than like, I mean, there's a reason that there's always like a kid character in movies for kids, because you just want to imagine like, yeah, I get to be the friend of the monster, or I get to hang out with the talking dinosaur or the whatever. There's you got to have like like all my favorite shows when I was a kid, like there was a character that was like, that's me, I'm in this story. So yeah, of course. But we have, as he starts exploring, he right away, of course, runs into Bloodstone, who is, a weird looking guy. He gets scared and he runs, and catches back up to Mom and Thelma. And Bloodstone also catches up, and he's like, he's introduces himself, welcomes them to their new home or whatever, and I'll show you to your rooms. And as soon as he gets them stashed away in their rooms, he goes right down to a hidden lab. The first we're seeing of this, obviously Frankenstein had a lab here, and we see, a figure on a slab under a sheet, and Bloodstone says, "Soon, my friend, soon." And it's hard, like, at this point in the movie, like, it's unclear what Bloodstone wants to continue Frankenstein's work, but we don't know exactly what that work is and if it is evil or not. Bloodstone's weird in a way where it's like he could just be a weirdo or he could be another villain. I mean, obviously Von Sloan is our capitalist villain, but like, what's Bloodstone up to? It's unclear. Are they going to try to take advantage of Billy and his family in some way to get what they want? Are the Frank family going to be trapped between these two villainous groups? At this point, it's not clear, intentionally so. But we go from that to kind of emphasize this. We have Billy in his room where he finds a stack of monster magazines just perfectly aimed at a kid like Billy. It's like fake famous monsters of Filmland and Fangoria type magazines. And at the bottom of the stack are the journals of Dr. Frankenstein. And Billy's like, what's this? This is interesting. So he starts flipping through it. And we see that Bloodstone is watching, like hidden, he's watching and is happy that Billy found this. He specifically put it there for Billy to find. So seems a little fishy still, right? And I think Billy doesn't get far before he gets called away to dinner. And, he comes down and sits with his mom and his aunt, and they're all like, what is the deal with that Bloodstone guy? He's weird, right? And they're like, I don't know. They just kind of, we'll see. We're all a little skeptical of everything going on around here, but we'll see what's going on. And then I think we just cut to Billy back in his room after dinner, and he starts reading stuff out loud, and we get the thesis here of, I believe it is the Frankenstein family legacy to create and maintain a monster. So we're several generations into the Frankenstein family continuing to, the son of Frankenstein, the grandson of Frankenstein, the whatever. I think at some point we'll hear and actually I think we'll eventually find out that this is great 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 uncle Frankenstein or something. But we'll go from Billy reading back to George at the hotel, who's also kind of stressed, and he picks up his family photo, and he says, "I may be a Frankenstein, but I'm not a monster, am I?" And I think he's processing what his friend said. I'm still here working in the hotel, and I've sent my family away to do more work for me on their own without their dad or their husband. Maybe I'm not making the right decisions here. And we go from that back to Billy, who has found in the back of the journal, there's a castle floor plan. And somehow Billy is an architectural genius, because right away he's like, okay, so that's that. This room's not there, and and so he right away is just able to read this floor plan brilliantly, and starts exploring, and Bloodstone again is spying on him, and Bloodstone's idea is that Billy's not just an architectural savant, but that he is a true Frankenstein, and that's how he somehow knows that there's a secret room.
Just inherited that natural Frankenstein genius, I guess.
Yeah. But sure enough, Billy is able to read the thing well enough that he right away finds the secret room and the monster under the slab, or under the sheet on the slab. And that's when Bloodstone decides to reveal himself to Billy and let him know what's going on a little bit. And he says, "You've discovered your great Uncle Frankenstein's creation." And he's about to pull the sheet away, and Billy's like, no way. I don't want any part of this. This is too much. And we cut from that to Von Sloan and the Fraulein, who are like parked in a car outside the castle on stakeout. And Von Sloan is really annoyed that Frug refuses to just go in with the hoax plan. He wants to really search for the actual monster before giving up and doing the hoax. And of course, Von Sloan thinks this is a waste of time because he's like, the monster doesn't exist. We're just wasting time when we could be buckling down on our actual plan. But then we go back to the lab where I guess while we were away for a few seconds, Bloodstone has convinced Billy that he should take a look at the creation, and does pull the sheet back. And we see a classic Universal style Frankenstein monster on the slab. And Bloodstone says that, this is your great uncle's creation, but it's now in suspended animation, and only a true Frankenstein can revive the monster. Which is an interesting thing. Like, this movie plays, it's not hard science. There's some like fantasy kind of woo-woo-ness to this as well, that like somehow there's something special about Frankensteins, that they have a unique ability outside of just being smart. They have some sort of inherent thing within them, in their Frankenstein souls, that allow them to revive these created monsters. And
it's like almost like the original creation, or the original experiment that Victor did, like forever cursed the bloodline that came after him. So they're just, for all of eternity, I guess, almost like their destiny is tied with the monster, I guess you could say.
Yeah. And again, Billy is like, no, I'm not doing that. And Bloodstone, again, is like, look at these. He has like some other Frankenstein journals. And Billy's kind of like flipping through them. And Bloodstone, without really knowing the whole dynamic with their family, he hits on the exact right thing to say to Billy to get him on board. He says, "Your father was a Frankenstein, and he ran from his legacy because he's a coward. He hides from his responsibilities, but I can tell you have what it takes." And of course, Billy is feeling a lot of spite towards his father right now, that his father has run from his responsibilities as a father to Billy. So he's like, I'm going to show him all, I'm going to be a better dad to this monster than my dad is to me. He does. So like, it works out perfectly. This is exactly what Bloodstone needed to say. And Billy's like, all right, okay, I maybe we can do this. And then we kind of just like cut away to some various sort of like people getting ready for bed. We have, I think, the mom is like sitting on a couch reading and falling asleep. Thelma is like doing like the classic sort of, putting on like the green face cream mask thing to get ready for bed. And Bloodstone is talking to a photo of his master and saying goodnight. And he's like, it sure is good to have a Frankenstein in the castle again. And we see the photo, and this is a pretty good bit that they'll kind of expand on. But this photo of the Frankenstein who recently died is just, the actor who plays George, but like dressed in older style clothes and with like a little pencil thin Vincent Price mustache and sort of a mad science look on his face. And we go from that to Billy by himself, but he's not going to sleep. He's really kind of digging into these journals now, and he's like, maybe this could be pretty cool. I would have a monster who would be my friend, and like I'd be his master. But he ends up falling asleep at the desk, right next to the creation, on the slab. And once Billy falls asleep, the monster wakes up and starts wandering around the castle. Which is, we end up with a pretty good bit where, like, now everybody else is asleep and the monster's awake. It's sort of a reverse of how we were just a few minutes before, to the point that we even cut away to our trio on stakeout, and they are all also asleep. Von Sloan and Fraulein Bluchter are asleep in their car, and Frug is just asleep on like he's like leaning up against a wall in like a little like alcove, just fast asleep. And we have like, the monster is like bumbling around the house. He's looking for food. He stumbles into Aunt Thelma's room, and this like is just a really great scene of like slapstick comedy. This may be one of my favorites in the movie. Aunt Velma ends up getting woken up by the monster kind of stumbling around, but again, she's wearing the green face mask stuff, and she's got cucumbers over her eyes. The monster sees himself in the mirror, as we need in every Frankenstein movie. I feel like I beat this dead horse anytime I can, but I think it's an important scene. And here I like that, like, it doesn't seem like, the various generations of Frankensteins have been cruel to their monster. It seems, this version of the story is, they're a little bit more intertwined and happy with their work. So he isn't instantly just like, I'm a monster, and like horrified by his appearance. He does kind of look like, I look a little strange, but then he looks over and he sees Thelma, also green faced and strange looking, and is like, okay, it's almost like, is this my bride I've been waiting for?
Yeah.
But she she can't see because she's got cucumbers over her eyes, so she thinks it's Billy in the room messing with her, trying to scare her, and she's like, I've had just about enough of this, Billy. She's get out of here, leave me alone. And she like kind of goes to grab the monster and somehow doesn't register that this is a much larger thing than Billy.
This is like a 7 foot tall, grown, like adult sized being, not a 12-year-old boy.
Yeah. But somehow she doesn't notice, but she does kind of scare the monster a little bit, who like, just in like self-defense picks her up and just kind of like tosses her over onto the bed, and then just like, stumbles back out of the room. And Thelma is so like taken aback by that, and seems almost like sort of half knocked out by the surprise or whatever. She says like, I didn't know the kid had it in him, and then just kind of like falls asleep. And we go from that back to Billy, who sort of like wakes up from a nightmare, and she's like, Dad, where? Oh, and then like, realizes where he is and sees that the monster is gone. And he's like, oh no, I gotta find the monster. So he heads back out into the rest of the house. Meanwhile, the monster has made it outside. He's like drinking from a fountain, and we see that Frug is very nearby and kind of like wakes up, from his sleep, and he's like kind of, getting cozy and everything. And he's like, I can go back to sleep for just a little. I mean, it's not like the monster is just going to come strolling through here. And then he just falls back asleep, and then the monster comes strolling through there right away.
Yep.
Just, such it's a dumb joke for kids, but it worked on me. It's great. It's, like I knew what was going to happen, and it happened, and I laughed. It was perfect.
Yeah.
And then we cut from that to just like the next morning, everybody starting to wake up. we have, the mom is like wondering how George is doing back at the house, or back at work and everything. And we see that he has fallen asleep at his desk as well. And he gets a phone call, and it's, I don't think we ever get a name for this friend that is like sort of his coworker, but, George kind of runs the place. So I guess, it's technically one of his employees. But he's like, hey man, an important exec is here and he's on his way to your office. So like, get ready. He'll be there in like a minute. And George is like, oh shit, like my office is chaos. He jumps up and he's like, oh no, I'm missing a shoe. I look all disheveled. He's like trying to like straighten his clothes, fix his hair, can't find the shoe, crawls under the desk. It's just chaos. And then that's when the exec walks in. George pops up from behind the desk, reaches out to shake his hand, and he's got his shoe stuck on his hand. He's like, oh, pardon me. And give me just, and he goes to put the shoe on. George kind of like just goes into this rambling thing. He's trying to talk about how the hotel chain is his life. He's really committed to taking care of this place. Just ask my wife and son. I'm never around. I'm always at work. Haha. Like he's kind of losing it. He ends up like, he sits on the family photo, breaks the glass, and he picks it up. It kind of looks sad. Like he's just a disaster here, to the point that like the exec never even says anything. Like he walks in,
he just looks at him like, you fucker, and then just walks right back out.
Yeah, it's great. And so George right away is like, I am fucked. Like this is bad. And we go from that to the mom, who is, or I guess Sandy. She's not my mom. She's Sandy. She is getting ready to make breakfast. She's like, I'll fix Billy's favorite. He's had a rough couple of days, but then she gets downstairs and finds a huge mess in the kitchen that the monster made. And she's like, what was Billy doing last night? And then we cut to Thelma, who wakes up in bed and is like, I can't believe Billy beat me up last night. What the? I'm going to go give that kid a piece of my... Like, so everybody's mad at Billy for things that Billy had nothing to do with. And like, I think we go back to Sandra, who's like, I really have been patient with Billy. I understand, he's upset with George, but he can't keep acting out like this because of him. Like, I deserve more respect than this. And you know what? I'm tired of George not being around. I deserve more respect from him too. And then that's when we see Thelma going to Billy's room to yell at him. And she instead finds a note from Billy that's just like, I needed to go out for a little while. I'll be home soon. See you soon. Bye. And Thelma's like, that's weird. So she goes to tell Sandra, and we see that she is getting off the phone with George, who is going to be heading out. He's got some time off. He'll be out to help out soon. And that's when Thelma comes in and hands over the note, and Sandy reads it and is like, oh no, what is going on here? And of course Bloodstone is spying again, and like immediately runs in and is like, oh, yeah, so Billy, I saw him, he talked to me, and like, I was talking about how sad I am about the master dying. Billy's such a good kid, he felt bad for me, and he said he was going to go into town and get me a little gift as a pick-me-up. What a sweet kid. I'm sure he'll be back soon enough. And we cut to Billy, who is in fact in the little street market, but not to buy a gift. He's obviously looking for the monster. He's asking around, and he's like, I'm looking for this. He's like about 7 foot tall, and he walks like this. Classic Frankenstein stuff. And they're like, oh yeah, that guy, yeah, he went that way. And so Billy takes off in that direction, and meanwhile, we have the monster bumbling into a monastery where he meets a blind monk. So this is our, sort of DeLacy-ish part, but, we're leaning more into like the hermit that we see in like Bride of Frankenstein or Young Frankenstein.
Yeah, I think this was probably my favorite part, or the funniest part to me in the whole movie was the monster's interaction with this monk. It was reminded me very much of fucking who played the blind old man in Young Frankenstein, Gene
Hackman.
Gene Hackman, yes.
Yeah, we get some pretty good gags here that are like unique to this. You know, like the first one is he keeps calling himself like a defenseless blind monk, but he kind of has like the monk, like he's like a D&D monk, or like a Zatoichi the blind swordsman kind of guy. Like he sort of accidentally just beats the shit out of the monster with his staff, and then we kind of like get sort of extended bits where like he keeps very slowly explaining things, and the monster starts doing a thing based on the first sentence, and by the last sentence in his explanation, things have dramatically changed. Like the first one, he's like, you see all these, it's a monastery, which it was a common thing for them to like, make wine and stuff there. So there's a bunch of grapes, and he's like, see these beautiful grapes? Don't they just look so delicious? Like, yeah, I'm sure you just want to grab a handful and just put them in your mouth. They just look so juicy and delicious. And the monster's like, yeah, and he starts scooping some, like picking some to stuff in his mouth, and he's like, yeah, but it's really a shame that they're just like the worst, most sour grapes that you can't do anything with. They're just absolute trash grapes. And the monster's like just trying to spit out all this like sour grape pulp and everything. And the monk's like, oh, I'm sorry, you ate some of them. I bet you wish you could wash that bad taste away with this spring right here. There's this spring water flowing out of the ground, and it's just this fresh water directly from the source. And then the monster's like, yeah, and he just starts like slurping down all this water, and he's like, it's a shame that this water is just so bad that like,
he's like, a few animals have died in it, and he's like, I think he says the last time I took a drink of it, I had the runs for like a week.
Yeah. And so again, the monster's like, no, because he's had more than just a sip of it. He just drank a bunch. And the monk's like, yeah, it was a good thing when I got sick that I had this roll of toilet paper with me. And so of course the monster just like snatches it and runs away. And yeah, so we go from that back to Sandy. Did the Bloodstone only said the thing about Billy getting the gift to Thelma originally? Because as soon as Sandy read the note, she like took off to find him, I think.
Yeah.
Because she comes back now and gets that information, and that's so now she's like, okay, I guess I'll wait here for him, and we go to. Again, Billy looking for the monster again, and he's just like in the woods now, just like calling out like, here, monster, basically. That's when then we go back again to Sheldon arriving at the castle, and now that he's here, him and Bloodstone want to sit Sandy and Thelma down and explain why they've been brought here, what the whole deal is with the tax thing and all that. And right away, they go from like being, sort of indifferent to this thing and like, okay, I guess we have a castle now. We got to figure out what to do about that. But as soon as like they find out like, oh, there's a mean rich guy who's going to try to take our castle, like, fuck that. No, we're gonna stop him. This is our castle. Von Sloan can't have our castle. We'll raise that money. We will get, it's the whole thing with like the ski lodge. Like we're gonna save the castle no matter what it takes. But Thelma, meanwhile, like she gets like an aside where she's like looking at the camera and she's like, something seems fishy here. And like she's almost like the audience surrogate that like, is Bloodstone up to something? That something just doesn't seem quite right, and I just don't know what it is yet. And we go straight from that to the actual fishy thing that we know is going on, which is that Frug is going to try, to go forward with the plan. And his first attempt is he disguises himself as a cable guy, and he wants to go into the house to like put up a bug so they can listen in on what's going on. And we get a pretty great gag that feels like, wow, this was a joke in the 90s, and it's still a joke today, which is that both Sheldon and Bloodstone, separately in their own homes, have been waiting for years for the cable guy to show up. So they're both furious. Like, where were you? I've been waiting, Sheldon stomps off, and then Bloodstone's like, well, I mean, I guess, the master ordered this cable package before he died, but sure, come on in, we can install it now. So Sheldon has left. He's now, I think Bloodstone says something about we need to find the monster before something goes wrong. So that's where Sheldon's off to. Meanwhile, Frug hides his recording device and leaves. And then we see back in the woods, the monster is now kind of spying on Billy. Billy has been searching for a while. He decides to sit down and have a little snack, and we get this sort of kind of sweet, empathetic moment from Billy where he's like, man, I'm starving from all this searching. He starts eating a sandwich and he's like, the monster's probably hungry too. He's been out longer than I have, and who knows when the last time he ate. He was unconscious before that, so I'll save the other half of this sandwich for him when I find him. And that's when the monster steps out. And, right away, Billy hands him the sandwich, and he's like, hi, you're the monster. I'm Billy. I'm your friend. And we get, the monster doing me monster, you friend, you Billy, and that kind of thing. And Billy's like, yeah, okay, well, we got to get back to the castle to fix everything, but getting back through town is going to be tricky. What if we get you in a disguise? So he puts a shawl over him and big glasses, and he's like, okay, yeah, you could pass as my grandma now. This will work. So they're headed through the street. Meanwhile, Sandy and Thelma are talking about that they're going to fight to keep the castle, which Frug is listening in on that. So he needs to, he heads back to the police station. I got to meet up with Von Sloan and tell him what's going on. And as soon as he gets there, he gets another prank call, and he's so annoyed that he's like, I'll take a nap while I'm waiting on Von Sloan to show up. I mean, surely the monster's not going to come strolling into the police station asking for directions. So what's going to happen.
Yeah, you'll never guess what happens next.
Yep. So Billy and the monster disguised as an old lady come in, and this is not a great disguise, right? It's a shawl and some glasses. But they wake up Frug, who in a half asleep state is just like, oh, you're looking for Castle Frankenstein? Yeah, it's down there. Just kind of gives them sort of half-assed directions. And then just falls right back asleep. I think he even holds up a map. He really shows them how to get to Castle Frankenstein, and does not register someone is looking to go to Castle Frankenstein. That should be enough to be I should pay attention to what's going on. But nope, he goes right back to sleep. And then we just cut to them getting to the house, and Billy's like, you wait out here, monster. I'm going to go inside and make a plan with Bloodstone. We'll figure out what to do. And so as soon as Billy walks in, Mom, of course, is like, oh, we've been wondering what your gift was all day. What did you get for Bloodstone? And Billy's like, has a look on his face like, what the fuck? And Bloodstone's like, hey, Billy, let's talk. Let me follow me. Oh, your dad, he's on his way. We should talk about what to do for your dad when he gets here. We'll be right back. And so very awkwardly, Bloodstone, gets away with Billy. And Thelma again is like, that was suspicious. So we go outside where the monster is just waiting around, and then a car pulls up, and it's George. So George goes inside, and as soon as he steps in the door, the monster's like, car, let's see what, let's play with a car. So he, gets in and tries to drive. But before we see how that goes, we go to Billy's room where Bloodstone is like, did you find the monster? And Billy's like, oh yeah, he's outside. I left him outside because I wasn't sure what was going on in the house. So we should go deal with that. And then he looks out the window and is like, oh no, the monster just got in a car. So they're like, oh shit. So he's like, all right, let's you follow my lead. We'll go downstairs. Don't let anybody go outside, and I'll take care of what's going on. So they run downstairs, and or Bloodstone does. George comes in, and of course, Sandy's very excited to see her husband, and Bloodstone's like, why don't you all follow me to the kitchen? Billy said he has a special surprise for his dad, and he asked us to go in here so he can get it ready. And so as soon as they leave the room, of course, Billy sneaks outside, gets the monster out of the car before he can do anything too crazy. Like, he's tried to back up, like, thankfully didn't, like, crash into the side of the house or anything. And George arrived with the chauffeur, but the chauffeur had, like, walked off, and he comes back over and, is like, what's going on with my car? And Billy's like, sorry, it's my grandma. She's, had a couple drinks, and I can't, look at her. She's a big grandma. Can you help me get her into the house? And the chauffeur's like, yep, sure. Say no more. Drunk grandma. We've all been there, kid. It's fine. So they get the monster into the house where Bloodstone catches up to them and is like, I'll take it from here. Thank you so much, sir. And the chauffeur leaves. They get the monster back down to the lab. And lay him on the slab. It's time. We're going to re-energize him, and it's going to be fully energized this time. And we get this sweet moment where, like, Billy takes the monster's hand, and he's like, I love you. And the monster says, I love you too, in, like, halting, monster speech. And then Billy's like, oh no, you said I had a surprise for my dad. What am I going to do when we go upstairs? And Bloodstone's like, I got it. He pulls a photo that he had, like, tucked in his pocket or something, and it's a photo of George as a child with his dad. And of course, so we had the actor playing George playing his dad in the previous photo. And so now, of course, we have the actor playing Billy playing young George. He's like, yeah, go up and deal with your family. The monster can wait a few more minutes. So Bloodstone is down there comforting the monster as Billy goes upstairs. And we cut from Billy heading up the stairs to George, who's like, all right, I have some news I got to tell you, Sandy. And Thelma's like, well, Sandy's got news for you also. And then that's when Billy comes in, and he's like, I've got something to tell you also. And Thelma's like, what? Wait, listen to what my thing. And George is like, with all, no offense, I think he says, like, no offense, Thelma, but out. Like, let the family, let us talk about this, and you go be somewhere else for a little bit. And George is like, let me go first, and then we can all go, and we'll see how we all feel at the end of this. I've been thinking a lot about priorities. I was running away from my past, and then I haven't even been good to my future. I've not been here for my family, but that all changes today. I'm a proud Frankenstein. I'm a proud father and a husband, and I've been fired from my job. So it doesn't matter, though. We're here. We're all together. We have this new lovely castle. We'll figure the rest of the stuff out. And Sandy's like, about that. So the news I had is we owe a bunch of back taxes, and if we don't pay it, we're going to lose the castle. So obviously not good news. Meanwhile, Thelma is upstairs, still suspicious, like, kind of searching around. She feels like somebody's hiding something. I guess, like, but the family catching up and everything, a little bit of time has gone by, and we have Bloodstone kind of comforting the monster, like, we're gonna get everything taken care of in the morning. Billy will come wake you up then. And we cut to the next morning where George, he's being pretty optimistic. He's flipping through the want ads. He's looking for jobs. He's also going to go down to the Bank of Viseria to ask for a loan. Another, Universal Monsters reference. I don't remember which Viseria is the town in, like, maybe...
I'm pretty sure it's House of Frankenstein.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to say, I knew it was one of them that had the Wolfman in it, for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely either House of Frankenstein or Meets the Wolfman. It's one of those two.
Yeah. But Sandy's like, I don't know. I mean, like, I don't know if anybody's going to give you a loan if you don't have a job already. And, what if Von Sloan finds out what we're up to and he can, like, take the house out from under us at the same time? And George is like, I have an idea, though. What if we just invite Von Sloan over here? And Sandy's like, that sounds like a crazy idea. And George is like, crazy? I am a Frankenstein after all. And he gives, like, a mad science laugh. And it's like they're very in love and it seems very happy. Like, again, this is the kind of thing where, like, as soon as everybody knows what's going on, everybody's on board and they're helping each other and there's no, like, hard feelings. Like, George was a little misguided at the beginning. He had his priorities a little misaligned. But now, Sandy's not holding it against him. They're going to work together. They're going to figure this out. And, of course, they're still missing one key piece of information that Billy has not shared yet. But, not because they're bad parents or whatever. Like, this is just, kids keep things sometimes. And he's not sure how they would respond to the fact that there's a monster in the house. So we get kind of extended jokes with George and Sandy here, where he's like, I'm feeling so good being back here with the family. Like, I feel like I've been zapped with electricity. Like, I've been brought back to life. I'm ready to take on the world. And Sandy gets to make another direct movie reference. She says, Frankenstein conquers the world, huh? Yeah, I'd say you're back, back from the dead, and they're, kissing, and it's just very sweet. And then we cut from them back down to Billy and Bloodstone, who are also trying to bring something back from the dead. Billy flips the switch. We have sparks and all the stuff we're used to. But nothing happens. Like, the monster is still in this sort of, like, half... Is it... it's either Ghost or Son of Frankenstein, where the monster kind of spends a lot of the movie in this sort of, like, half awake state where they like, we need to get you more juice so that you're fully awake. He's just kind of, like, stumbling around. That's, like, definitely the vibe.
I think that's Meets the Wolfman, because in Ghost he's pretty active.
I know. Yeah, because it's Igor, like, leading the monster around, and he's like, we need to get you struck by lightning again. That would fix it, or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, like, especially in the last two, House of Frankenstein and House of Dracula, I mean, Glenn Strange is basically there to lay on a table until the last, like, 5 minutes of the movie.
Yeah. So, yeah, but regardless, like, they're just like, it's not enough. It's not working, but the monster is still sort of awake, and Billy's like, we're going to keep trying. I can't lose you. And the monster says, I can't remember exactly the way, in sort of monster speak, says, like, I'll never leave you. I will always be here. And, like, puts his hand on Billy's heart. And Billy and Bloodstone are like, we'll be back. We're going to figure it out. Like, we're going to regroup. We'll come back. Just wait here. Meanwhile, we have Von Sloan and Frau Blutger going to check in on Frug, and they can't find him. And then we go back down to the monster, who has, like, dozed off and then woken up, and because he's just a big kid, he's like, he misses Billy and he doesn't know what's going on, so he decides to go looking for him. And we go back to von Sloan and the Fraulein, who are arguing about where is Frug? Like, what is he doing? He's probably still out on his monster hunt. And von Sloan is like, there is no monster. We need to convince him of this so that he'll actually help us. And then that's when the monster strolls in, and von Sloan and the Fraulein are immediately scared. They're trying to, shivering in the corner. Von Sloan's trying to give the monster money. And then he's like, oh, you don't want money? What about her? You can have her. And the monster's like, he like kind of grabs the Fraulein and gives her a big kiss. And as he does, the top of his head falls off, and we see that it's a wig. It's actually Frug. And I mean, it was pretty obvious it was Frug right away.
Yeah.
But von Sloan couldn't tell for some reason. And we had sort of an implication earlier on that, like, Fraulein Blutger, in spite of, like, being with von Sloan, she seems to have a little bit of a thing for Frug, which kind of makes this scene not feel sexual assault-y,
Yeah.
Like, as soon as she realizes who it is, she's kind of like, okay, like, this is a pretty good kiss, so it's okay. But that, is encouraging to von Sloan. Okay, yeah, you've got a plan. It almost fooled me. Almost fooled me, but like, okay, this could fool them. And so the plan is, of course, at this point, von Sloan and Fraulein have already been invited over for dinner, so it's perfect. They'll already be there, and then Frug can just, show up and scare them, and it'll be perfect. So we cut back to George and Sandy, who are continuing to kind of like enjoy each other's company. They go down to that street market, and they're just, shopping, just having a good time. And they see that vendor selling the dolls, and specifically the Frankenstein one. And George is like, there's something about this doll that's very familiar to me. It just reminds me of my childhood, but I can't quite place it. And she's like, do you want the doll, babe? And he's like, yeah, I kind of want the doll. And she's like, but you can get the doll. Which this feels this feels real to me. This feels like,
Oh yeah.
Going
in this exact situation before.
Yeah, Hallie calls all of my various Frankenstein and Godzilla and Ninja Turtle toys my little guys. And so often she'll be, I'll see something and she's like, do you need this little guy? And I'm like, yeah, I need this little guy. So yeah, I get it. But so yeah, they buy the Frankenstein doll, and we cut back to Billy and Bloodstone, who are going to try again, see if they can revive the monster. And again, they find that he's wandered off, and they're like, oh, great, he's gone again. So they go upstairs, and we get another slapstick bit with the monster and Thelma. But this time it's like Thelma her eyes aren't covered this time. She's just like looking the other way. And the monster's like right behind her. And so like Billy and Bloodstone are like gesturing wildly, like, no, don't let her see you, like, get away, like, and just gesticulating wildly, and the monster is just mimicking what they're doing, just waving his hands around, making himself more noticeable. And of course, eventually Thelma does turn around and see this giant monster waving his arms around all crazy, and she instantly faints. And Bloodstone's like, well, maybe she hit her head when she fell, so maybe she won't remember that she saw a giant monster. Let's just drag her back to her room and throw her in the bed and hope it'll be fine. We'll figure it out later. So they do that, and then we just cut to like back down in the lab, where Billy again is like, I don't know what to do. We keep trying and it's not working. Some Frankenstein I turned out to be. You're gonna die, and just because I can't do it, and I can't. So I think this is where the monster says, "Not die, I'll live on here." So earlier, I think maybe he just like fell asleep and didn't. But anyway, we get this. We have several very sweet moments between Billy and the monster, which again is what you need in this kind of like monster kid movie. Like, of course, the kid is gonna. Yeah. This is, Monster Squad all over again. We have to have this where like the kids connect with the Frankenstein monster, and he's a friend, and like it gets me every time. So, but Billy's really upset about it, and Billy says, "But you're my only friend," and the monster says, "No, not friend, family," and he says something like, again, monster speak, but like basically, if I don't make it, you still don't forget about your family. Take care of this place. This is our family's home. And Billy was like, yeah, I just wish I wasn't the last Frankenstein. If only there were two of us, maybe we could figure it out together. And the monster's like, Father. And then Billy's like, oh, yeah, my dad's also a Frankenstein, and he's still around. Yeah, okay. So maybe I need to talk to him. But what will he... I don't know if he'll be okay with a monster. And the monster, again, puts his hand on Billy's heart and just says, trust. So we cut from that back to the parents who are... again, or they're still just kind of flirting at the street market, and they're like, oh, we should head home and fix dinner and see Billy. And they do like a race you home kind of thing, and one of those where like countdown, and I think Sandy takes off before the countdown's over, and he's like, hey, I didn't get to one yet, or whatever. And again, very playful, very loving. I liked this relationship a lot. And so then we do just cut to them back at home, getting ready for dinner, discussing like, what are we going to do to convince Von Sloan not to build a mall here? Meanwhile, Bloodstone is staying with the monster. Like, I really hope Billy knows what he's doing. And Billy is like talking to himself like, okay, Dad, so the thing is, he's trying to figure out how he's going to say this. And then there's a knock at his bedroom door, and it's his dad, who has a little gift for him, and it's the Frankenstein doll. And like, he's like, I thought you might like this. And Billy's just like speechless. Like, it's the monster. It's a doll of the I'm trying to figure out a way to talk about this. And here's the doll. But he's so speechless that George is like, oh, I know it's done. You're probably too old for dolls. I'm sorry, but and Billy's like, no, I love it. But I need to tell you something. And we cut from him about to tell him to Thelma, who has woken up and wandered downstairs in this sort of like half catatonic state. And Sandy's like, can you help me get dinner ready? And she's just useless because she's just like a walking vegetable. And that's when, of course, the guests arrive and Sandy has to let them in. And we see that outside, Frug's kind of like trying to, amp himself up to be the monster, but he's like having trouble because the monster shoes are hard to walk in. And then we go back to Sandy, who is trying to entertain the guests, but she's like, Thelma's no help. And she's like, where is George? Where's Billy? Like, I need my whole team here to do this. And I think we see that Billy and George are downstairs in the lab. We never get this conversation of Billy trying to explain it, but somehow he's got George to follow him. And George is like on board right away. Again, like these are good parents. These are not the normal monster movie parents who are terrible. He's just like, okay, yep, there's a monster. It's our family legacy. Let's do it. Let's bring this monster back. And Billy's like, I've tried. I said a true Frankenstein could do it, and it's not worked. I don't know what I've got wrong. And George's flipping through the journals, and he's like, well, I know a little thing or two about, looking over important documents, and you missed the fine print. And it says that the monster has to be revived, not by the last Frankenstein, but by all living Frankensteins. This is to keep the family legacy alive And then it's like signed Victor Frankenstein the third. So this is already 3 generations down. So they're like, okay, that's it. We have to do it together, which again feels like a very kids movie thing. Like, we got to get the whole family together. We got to team up. This is the way we solve the problem, together. And so, yeah, sure enough, they both put their hands on the mad science switch. They flip it. Sparks start flying. The monster wakes up, and like, as soon as he does, like, you know, like, he is juiced now. Like, he's ready to go. Everything's looking good. But we see upstairs from having flipped the switch, the lights are flickering in the living room, and Sandy's like, what the fuck is going on? She's like, Thelma, can you join me in the kitchen for a minute? You folks just wait right here. We'll be right back. And so they go into the kitchen, and Sandy is like, what is going on? Like, where's George? Where's Billy? Why are the lights flickering? What is going on? And then we see out in the living room, Von Sloan is like, where is Frug? Like, what is going? Why is everybody's frustrated? You know? And then that's when the real Frankenstein monster comes stumbling in, and Von Sloan's like, there you are, finally. What are you doing? Like, you've messed this up. Like, they're not even here, right? Like, they went into the other room. What's going on here? What took you so long? And like, the monster is, you know, I can't remember what he does a couple, like, things that reveal that he is not Frug. You know, he shows that he's way too strong to just be Frug. And that's when Von Sloan's like, oh no, the monster is real, and this is the monster. And they both, Von Sloan and Fraulein Blutger, immediately turn and run. They exactly what they wanted to happen to the Frank family happens to them. They are immediately turned off of the idea of buying this castle. They run away in terror, and in fact bump into Frug on, like, on the sidewalk outside. Or I think it's actually a drawbridge, and they, like, they're like, oh, so you wanted to see the real monster, right? Well, he's right behind us. See you, man. They just, like, take off. And Frug's like, wait, what? And that's when the monster rushes out of the door, scaring Frug, who immediately just, like, dives off the drawbridge into the moat. And the whole family just comes out and has a good laugh. And this is just like, we don't even have a conversation with Sandy. Like, she doesn't need to be anyone to explain to her, like, okay, our family monster's here. He scared away the bad guys. Cool, great. On board. I'm in. It's just really sweet. Like, the whole family it's just like, oh, what a silly day we've all had. They're just, it's great. It's very sweet. But they're like, but still the tax money, we've scared off Von Sloan, but we do still owe the back taxes. What are we going to do? And Billy's like, hear me out, guys. I've got an idea. And we immediately cut to, some time has gone by. Castle Frankenstein has now been turned into a little bit of an attraction. It's the most evil place on Earth. And we have, like, this sort of monotone girl as a tour guide who's, like, showing people around the lab and everything. And, like, a kid, like, runs over, like, what's this switch do? And the guide is like, no, stop, don't flip the switch. Like, just completely uninvested. And I was like, I can't tell if, like, this is part of a bit or, like, just is, like, a tour guide who doesn't give a fuck. And the girl runs over, does flip the switch, and gets, like, zapped. And of course that causes her hair to frizz up, and she looks like the bride. Very cute. And then we just see that, like, the whole family's in on this as an attraction. We've got photo ops with the monster. We've got Aunt Thelma there, also just dressed up as the bride for the photo ops. George and Sandy are taking the pictures. Everybody's having a great time. In fact, 2 guests come in to get their picture taken, and it's the cute couple of Frug and Fraulein Blutger, who has apparently left Von Sloan. And they get their picture with the monster and Thelma. George and Sandy are in like more like traditional German garb. Everybody's just having a great time. And then Sandy's like, oh, you know what? So everything's worked out and everything, but like, what happened to that lawyer guy? What was his name? Sheldon or something? And yeah, he left after Frug showed up as the cable guy. We haven't seen him since. He went to look for the monster. And so we cut to Sheldon, who's just out in the woods, like looking for the monster still. And then we see him sort of like coming towards the camera, and then suddenly, as the camera's like backing up with him, there's a guy on the road. We just see him from the back, and he's wearing a long cape, cape that has like a, kind of a cowl neck to it, Sheldon's like, hey, have you seen like a big tall monster and a kid wandering around out here anywhere? And silently, our caped figure, who possibly could it be, points at a road sign, and Sheldon looks at it, and the road sign, is one of those like classic arrow pointing this way to get somewhere, and it just says Transylvania. And Sheldon's like, thanks, pal, and takes off in that direction.
Yeah. So of course, it was the creature from the Black Lagoon. Yeah, I thought that was funny because it means that Sheldon, presumably, you're in Germany in Castle Frankenstein, and he's walked. The 7 kilometers is what? Like, it's like less than 5 miles to Transylvania. So he's basically walked across the entirety of continental Europe in a matter of a few days, I guess.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive. And it's hilarious to sort of like, I don't think that anyone ever thought this was going to be a sequel, but we are setting up something like a possibility of a sequel, but as with Sheldon as the protagonist in the next movie. Very, very silly. But yeah, it's just kind of a great little button gag. It felt like, Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein ends with Abbott and Costello meeting the Invisible Man very briefly. So it seemed perfect to just very briefly have this little Dracula joke to cap the movie off. But yeah, so that's how it ends. That takes us to credits, and this one, like, I don't know why this one doesn't have a little bit more attention, like especially because, it is, Fred Olen Ray, who, horror nerds love his stuff. He's, definitely has a following. I feel like I was looking at his list and I was like, man, I've seen like 10 or 15 movies by this guy, and somehow not this one that's, a Frankenstein movie.
Yeah, I don't know. I think maybe it's, because who's the company that released this? It's some defunct company.
Yeah, that may be it. That it's just like not, that's the funny thing about, physical media is that stuff that gets re-released becomes canonized. Like,
Oh yeah.
If a movie is only available on VHS, people are going to forget about it. But if Vinegar Syndrome grabs it and puts out a really nice deluxe edition, suddenly people are talking about it again, and it becomes, part of the conversation. And I think this kind of thing happens over, like, and it's not just movies. Like, I was reading something recently about the band American Football. Like they just put out a new album, so people are talking about them a lot, and it's funny, they should not be a band that people really care about, because they put out one album like back in the day, and then they broke up before they toured it. They broke up before like anyone cared about this album. That's just like a recipe for being forgotten. But just by luck or a few tenacious people, like the record company that had the rights to their album really liked it, and they never let it go out of print. It was just always around. And so a lot of other bands whose albums did fall out of print got forgotten, and American football just stayed around. And now these guys are older. They've reunited. Like they've now put out 4 albums. They've put out way more material as a reunion band than they did as an original band. But like it's just because the media was there for people to keep checking out, and maybe that's why this has gotten kind of overlooked, is that it's not like I don't have this in any kind of physical media form. I found it on I think it's on YouTube. Like it's just some great hero ripped it from a VHS and put it on YouTube, and that's the way you can watch it. If Severin or Vinegar Syndrome or some such media house or whatever were to get their hands on it, I mean, I would obviously snatch it up, but I think a lot of people would be like, oh, this movie is fun, this is good. So who knows? Maybe it'll happen. I know Vinegar Syndrome occasionally will, or not Vinegar. I think they have occasionally, but Severin has like a whole line of like weirdo kids movies made by directors who usually didn't do kids movies. So they would probably be prime company to get their hands on this. And I will keep my fingers crossed that it happens, because I would love this to be like sort of canonized, at least under among the weirdos like us who are into this kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, I was talking about the fact that I, rented it as a kid, but that was probably the original and only VHS release that this movie got. That video store just happened to have a copy of. But yeah, I would definitely, if like you said, if Severin or somebody else managed to put out a decent edition of this with maybe some special features, if there's anything that they could find, maybe some deleted scenes or maybe interviews with they could interview Darren Norris. I don't think any of these other actors, the ones that are still alive, I know the kid that played Billy, Jordan Lamoureux, I mean, he didn't really have anything else that I saw that was like, anything that big that he was in. I mean, they could interview Fred Olen Ray, that'd be interesting. I'd buy it just for that, hearing him talk about making this movie. But yeah, definitely, I would also be there for a physical release of this.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think Monster Squad had a it was sort of ignored initially and has built up a lot of momentum over the years, that like it's now a pretty well-respected cult classic. So yeah, I mean, maybe time will similarly be kind to this one. And that one, I think a lot of it was because some of the people involved, the like Andre Gower, who played the main character in Monster Squad, like made a documentary about the fan base for this movie, and like kind of kept it in the public eye. So yeah, maybe getting Billy on board to do an interview and do some stuff like that. Maybe that's the route.
Yeah, we could only hope. Yeah. But anyways, we hope you guys enjoyed our coverage of this, and if you checked it out, let us know what you think. Anthony, do you know what we're going to be covering next week?
There are 2 movies that I've been meaning to do for a while. They're like a series of kids movies. Maybe we'll do the first of those next week. This is since we're kind of in a kid friendly mode. So there's these are from several years ago. It's called Monster Family. And I have had copies of these 2 movies since before we started the podcast and have never watched them.
Is that the one where they're all like everyone in the family is a different monster, and I think the dad is the Frankenstein?
Yes, and all that I know about it is
I've seen those. I've not seen it. I've seen those like the DVDs of those like sitting at Walmart around Halloween for like forever. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I just have never like ever checked them out.
Supposedly they're pretty good. Like I think they're maybe like made in like France or Germany or something, and then have like an American like dub cast or something, which is a rare thing for something that would be bad. So I assume that they must be like pretty decent at least.
Yeah.
But I think the basic premise is that they were like humans who get turned into monsters somehow. But I don't really know much about it beyond that. So yeah, maybe we'll watch Monster Family 1 next week, and then obviously we'll go into Monster Family 2 the week after, assuming that the first one's not just like, unbearably bad.
Yes,
but yeah,
it's not some kind of cursed videotape that will kill us, after watching. But yeah, that sounds good to me. I always am, interested in checking out more friendly, like kid-friendly type of Frankenstein stuff, because that's, obviously, that's not something that I am watching as much now that I'm a grown man. But a lot of this stuff, it's still great. Like they're still making good stuff for kids.
Yeah.
But
hopefully this will be that. So we will check that out next week and find out.
Definitely. All right, Anthony. Where can they find us?
So you can find us on all the socials at The Frankencast. You can email us at thefrankencast@gmail.com. We're also on YouTube, and of course, we're also at patreon.com/The Frankencast, where we got a bonus episode every week. We've been going kind of heavy on comics lately. There's been some really cool comic stuff. I think Eric was finally back recently. We did another Monsters episode, so
yes,
there's more of that. So yeah, definitely stop by over there and check it out. There's plenty of good stuff, and we'd love to have you over there.
Definitely. All right. Well, if that's everything on this one, then it's to be continued.
Looks like you survived another episode. The Frankencast is a production of FCR Media. It's hosted by Anthony Bowman, Eric Velasquez, and Hayden Knorr. Follow us online at The Frankencast, or send us a letter at thefrankencast@gmail.com. Our cover art is by Amanda Keller. You can find her at Keller Illustrations on Instagram. Our theme music is by Vivek Abhishek. Thanks for listening.